All right, guys, we're going to jump in. It's 4 minutes after, and we do want to be respectful of your time. We've been trying to keep these within the 30-minute time frame, so we're going to jump right in today. And you likely had an opportunity to see the bold topic that we're going to cover today, which focuses on ultimately the absence of a pre-approval and what that ultimately means for your prospective clients, which hopefully for most of you does mean that there is no showing opportunities if the client isn't willing to walk through the process of a pre-approval. And so I'm going to start off with the question, and I do anticipate or hope that this session can be interactive today. So you can either raise your hand. I'll keep an eye on the video for those of you that have video on, but you can also drop in the chat. And I want you all to be honest. How many of you have shown a buyer homes before they were pre-approved? All right, so I'm aware, and I know that most of you are or have likely been in a scenario where you have shown a buyer homes. And they are not pre-approved. Maybe they're committing to you that they are going to get pre-approved, but they have not yet been pre-approved. And so and I'll also say that this is something that we experience as lenders as well, where we kind of work with the buyer. We have conversations for weeks and months, and we're either waiting on documents, they won't submit an application, just some sort of a resistance to actually getting pre-approved. And that can go on and on and on. And so we definitely have challenges similar to those that agents may face. So I'm going to ask you this question next. What is the downside of skipping a pre-approval? And I see Laura put in the chat wasting time. Gina put show client homes that they will not qualify for and cannot afford. Those are very valid. I love the responses. I want to maybe zero in on the one that Laura mentioned because it's the one that's most critical and maybe most pertinent in terms of a couple of recent scenarios that I've seen personally where, there's just so much in the way of time and the miss from an expectations perspective that ends up happening when the due diligence upfront isn't taken to actually ensure a client is pre-approved. And so what I want to do, and I'm going to ask one more question before we get into kind of the meat of the presentation today. What do you think top agents do differently here? And so, Madison, you mentioned that in the buyer agency agreement, there is a clause that, references that. Obviously, that portion perhaps may have been omitted if you find yourself in a scenario where you're not ensuring that the client is pre-approved. I'm gonna give you all a 5-step framework today. Very, very simple, but ultimately reduces some pressure, hopefully, and puts you in a position to make this feel natural as you're having these conversations, but not pushy, because I'm sure there are scenarios where you feel like you're pushing, and Peggy, you kind of alluded to this as well, but you're pushing the buyer to do something perhaps that they're not yet comfortable doing. But ultimately, you're trying to avoid some headache in the longer run. And then I can't help but believe as agents, there's the concern perhaps in the back of your mind that they're going to go find the next agent that is going to show them homes because you're pushing for pre-approval ahead of that process. And so there's the fear of losing business perhaps as an option as well. So let's talk about step one, which is setting the tone. All right, if you want to write that down, setting the tone, and I can send the framework after the session as well. But obviously, there is a message that, as buyers reach out to you, whether it's a warm referral, it's a Zillow lead, what have you, whatever the reason, here's something that you can share with those buyers, again, in a natural way, but is not actually pushing them to do something they're not comfortable with. And you're actually defaulting here to a strategy as opposed to necessarily a requirement that they have to follow. And so it goes something like this. Before we go look at homes, I want to make sure we have a strategy in place so you're in the strongest position when we find the right one. I'm going to read that again. Before we go look at homes, I want to make sure we have a strategy in place so you're in the strongest position when we find the right one. So this is ultimately setting the tone. It is an expectation ultimately, but it doesn't come across in that way. And so that gives you a little bit of a competitive edge where they hopefully will understand that this is what you need them to do before you actually go look at homes. All right. So I'm going to go into step two, and that's ultimately discovering motivation. So as we think about the importance of this step, before kind of talking financing, you are hopefully building trust with this client, and you are also making it about them and not the actual process. All right. So step two is going to be discovering the motivation. Why are you asking them to do that, and why is it important? All right, let's go into step three, and you guys chime in, pipe in if any other ideas come to mind as we go through the material today. So the third step is financial positioning. It helps to determine budget. Most of you are reaching out to a lender because you want to actually understand what your client can afford. You know, a lot of times clients don't actually know what they can afford. They maybe perhaps look at their income level. Some are savvy enough to do that. But depending on what they have in the way of liabilities, if they've got a $700 car payment, which I've recently experienced, that's really going to limit the amount of money in terms of a house that you can afford. And so that definitely will help. And then obviously, I think maybe the last one I'd mention is qualification. Are there items on their credit? Are there collections? Are there specific items that are going to prevent them from actually being able to qualify from a risk standpoint? So this is really, really important because again, it's going to speak to that strategy more so than this push or this ask and the diligence that the client has to do up front. It's going to help improve your overall strategy as well. It's going to give you stronger offers. It's going to give you faster closings. It's going to give you negotiation power. And then I think finally, as you all are having conversations kind of cross agency, buyer side, seller side, what have you, it's building confidence with those agents as well for you. All right. The other thing I'll mention, just because a lender is the one who has the microphone right now, it gives you the option. You're likely each of you are working with one of the LOs on this call, but when you bring us in early, we're not just pre-approving them. We're not just reviewing their documentation, but we're also able to help you structure the deal. It allows us to get creative when we have insight into the specifics of that particular client. And so it's not just you're getting a letter from us, it's allowing us to help you structure that particular deal and really be involved in the process end to end. All right. Thank you for that, Dixie. Budget determination to make sure that the monthly payment is affordable. Love that. Just because a client can afford a home, meaning the income is there, the liabilities are low, it doesn't necessarily mean they want to spend that amount. And so we want to make sure we don't have sticker shock as well. So thank you for sharing that. That's huge.
Hey,
All right.
Corey, real
Yeah,
quick, I
Jonathan.
want to add in one thing too. When you bring the right lender in the mix, um, aka legacy team, when you do that, we're not just pre-approving, but we're also solidifying to your client how lucky they are to be working with you.
Mm,
Not every loan officer does that, but I can guarantee it. We do it 100% of the time. Because if you refer us somebody, guess who our favorite realtor is at the moment? Jessica Lewis. We're going to say you're working with you're so fortunate, lucky to be working with Jessica. She's going to take super, super good care of you. We will do this 100% of the time. So, like if you have not cemented that relationship yet, we're going to help you cement it quickly. Okay, so that's another reason why you want them to talk to not just any lender, but someone that's going to help solidify why you are the best at what you do.
I love that. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, guys, let me do a quick recap of the framework. Step one, we're setting the tone. Step two, we're discovering motivation. Step three is financial positioning. And then next, we're going to look at setting expectations. And so once you've reached that point where you've been able to get a client fully pre-approved, you are now letting them know ultimately the hurdle, which is a large hurdle for most clients that they have reached. We are getting you pre-approved, and then we're going to go all in on finding the home. And so you're removing any friction, you're removing any requirements as it relates to you're now committed to me, and we'll actually talk about that in the next step. But you're able to set the expectation with the client that we're now able to go all in finding the right home for you. All right, the final step I'm going to cover here as we wrap, and then we're going to open it up for some questions here and some dialogue. But the final step is closing for commitment. Closing for commitment. So I want to ask the group again, another poll here. Does anyone actually ask for commitment from your buyers? As you're having your initial client consult, are you asking them for commitment? And maybe even on the lender side, I believe our team is doing that. But as you've put together a strategy, as you have drafted agreements, what have you, are you actually asking? We're in the sales industry, right? And so we're setting expectations, we're doing this pre-work, but at some level, we're also asking for commitment for that buyer to move forward. Is anyone doing that today? I'm going to give you a free line here that you can leverage. Very, very simple script as you're having those conversations. If we can get you fully prepared and ready to win, are you comfortable moving forward together? If we can get you fully prepared and ready to win, are you comfortable moving forward together? So this is setting the expectation with that client, but you're also closing for commitment. You're asking them if we can get this, if we can make this happen, can we move forward together? All right. So let me ask this as we wrap today, what's stopping you from requiring a pre-approval up front? Let's talk about some objections here.
I think that a lot of times the value that a good lender and a great realtor bring to the table is giving advice. So, someone who wants to pounce and jump and immediately do something like that isn't setting themselves up for full success when when you're even presenting the offer. If they just decide that they want to quickly do something out of the blue without even allowing 24 hours or 48 hours, because a lot of times our team can get a pre-approval letter in less than 48 hours from start to finish, unless you're hitting us up on the weekend sometimes. But even with that, we do have exceptions there sometimes. But the key piece, or what I'm trying to get at, is when you're creating an offer for somebody who's making a huge investment, like buying a house, right? I think to counsel them and let them know, hey, I'm going to chat and let these folks know that we're very interested in putting an offer in on the home. But I really think that it's in your best interest to potentially connect with a trusted local lender to make sure that you're getting the best deal possible, and also the pre-approval letter that's going to help you beat the odds that are on the table out there already. So just giving them that guidance and pointing them in the right direction there, I think will actually help their scenario, and it'll make you look like you're going to take a minute to pause to give them the right guidance. Of course, we all want instant gratification, but that's not always what's best for us.
The other thing I wanted to add quickly, and hopefully Jonathan doesn't shoot me for saying this, but there are instances where in those scenarios, an application can be filled out before a conversation with the lender. And so if you've got a buyer late at night or on the weekends, we generally like to have a conversation with the client and a consult before they actually fill out an application. But sometimes filling out an application can be humbling and can also pause a buyer's excitement because they've got to actually go in and fill out information. They've got to get the documents to us. And so sometimes that naturally slows a buyer down too. If they are truly in a hurry and they're really pushing back on you, we can get you the application. I get a sense that you're wanting to start quickly. So here's the application, and go ahead and have them to fill that out. And we can follow up after and have the consult after, but we're moving things along. Hopefully they're already getting us documentation. And so that might also be a way to maybe pause things a little bit and slow the buyer down, is getting them our application link up front so that they feel as though they're doing something, but they're also moving the process along.
I just wanted to go back to, because I think Laura had mentioned, and I think maybe I saw someone else mention it too, about being new. And, here's one thing I want you all to think about. Even if you're a newer agent, I've never taken a real estate exam. Well, actually, I have, like 30 years ago. So that was a lie. But most people have never taken a real estate exam, studied for the license, got their license. If you've done that, you are the expert. When you're the expert, you're allowed to speak with authority on what you know. And what you know is that it's always best for your client to get pre-approved. I thought what Madison shared was genius, and how they make that compromise in meeting that expectation up front, and they can use that to get some face time to solidify working with that person. I think that's great. That's something I wouldn't have thought about, but I think that's a great way to do that. But speak with authority. And for me, we're not going to do a prequal letter. We're just not going to do it. we will do pre-approvals, meaning that we're going to look at a person's paycheck stub and W-2. We're going to take the time to do those things because I want the person shopping with confidence. And that takes time to do. It's not an ATM transaction. It's a real human, meaning me or Dixie or Corey, with a calculator and pen or a computer program analyzing income and making sure that we know we can move forward before you go out and start showing homes. That takes time. But talk with authority. I just want to address that being you. You've got the class, you've got the license, you got the certification, you're a realtor, licensed realtor. And so therefore you're the expert. Okay. You are.
Love that.
Um, anyhow, sorry, Corey, for
Love that.
taking your show.
No, it's all good. It's fantastic. And I love that reminder too. And I'm going to send it in the recap that I'll send you all. Hopefully we have attendance captured, Ellison, and we'll send just a quick recap of the framework that we talked about today. We want to thank you all for taking a few minutes to hang out with us, and I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.